This is the first step when you start mixing that you should be doing to your tracks every single time to make sure your plugins react the right way to your audio. So this is actually gain staging. Gain staging is probably the most misunderstood term when we're first starting to mix. I myself did not understand gain staging for almost a year after I started mixing my own music. Part of this series that I'm doing, I also created 2 different guides for you to help you out as you're moving forward in your journey of mixing systematically. So the first one is going to be an EQ guide, which gives you all of the basic understanding of where the areas of interest when you're EQing each and every single instrument. This is just a guideline, but it also gives you some tools that you can use to understand what's actually wrong with your instruments and your tracks as you're diving into EQing various instruments. And then the second guide is a guide on compression. This is basically a 101 guide on what compression is and how to use it effectively. It goes through the 4 styles of compression so that you can understand exactly what I'm talking about throughout this series. So make sure you pick up both of those guides. You can find the link right below this video, or you can go to mastering.dinosaurdogstudio.com. What we're talking about gain staging and gain really in general is gain is the input volume that's going into your DAW. So what we're doing here is we're adjusting the input volume before we use any sort of plugins on side of these tracks. The reason why we want to do this is plugins are designed to work at a certain level. Back in the day when we were using tape, that was 0 decibels because tape has natural saturation that's nice and warm, that sounds good. And so it's okay if we have stuff that kind of peaks over that -0 threshold once in a while because it just creates this nice warm saturation for our tracks. In the modern digital realm, we can't have that because digital distortion sounds really bad to us. So plugin manufacturers decided, okay, well, we can't have this at 0 because we're going to be causing a lot of digital distortion if people are actually having their tracks that loud. So they decided at a standard of -12 decibels. So what we want to do is the first thing we do in our DAW is to throw on some gain plugins, and we want to make sure that everything is peaking at around -12 or below. That way that our plugins will actually be able to react the best way to that audio possible. So if we throw a compressor or an EQ on side of a track, it's going to react the way that the manufacturer of that plugin intended it for that plugin to react to that audio. First step, put in all your tracks into your DAW, organize them to whatever makes sense to you, and then put a gain plugin on every single track and make sure that nothing is peaking over about -12 decibels. That is the first step. Next step is going to be cleaning EQ. So this is where we're going to actually start to use some plugins and actually clean up some of these tracks before we really dive into the meat of the mix.